Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friday live stream. So just like the title and the thumbnail suggests, we're taking a look at the Bitcoin treasury companies, and they just passed owning 1 million worth of Bitcoin. So we're going to take a look at that. Is that good for the market? I personally think it is good, unless they do some things down the road. And also we're going to take a look at rate cuts, which it looks like are an inevitability. So the first things first, there are a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies. MicroStrategy was one of the first, or the first, the big first, that came out in 2020. And now we have all these companies kind of coming in. Remember, nobody wants to be first, but nobody wants to be last. So with this one, this is from a friend of the show, Guy and the Guru over at Coin Bureau. Asia's first 1 billion Bitcoin treasury, Sora Ventures, just launched a $1 billion fund to buy Bitcoin, and they plan to stack it all in the next 6 months. That's great. So if Bitcoin's around, I think it's like 111,000. Correct me in the comment section, but let's just use round numbers. If it was 100,000, they'd get around 10,000 Bitcoin, right? So if it's at 110,000, they'd get around 9,000 Bitcoin. And if it goes up to what people think it's supposed to go up to, like around 200,000, again, not my price prediction, just some wacky people out there, then, they're looking at only acquiring 5,000 Bitcoin. So I think when you have these Bitcoin treasury companies looking at Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy going, I want to get into that. And then as we start to see the price push up, I'm hoping that these companies will really start to pile in, because right now we just passed a pretty major milestone where it looks like the publicly traded companies, and it says right here, this is from bitcointreasuries.net. You can check this out yourself. Total of public companies own 1,442,000 Bitcoin. Now remember, theoretically, there's only 21 million. And I don't think that's true. I mean, we know it's 21 million. I'm not going to be something sacrilegious, but as far as like what have been lost, you have Satoshi Nakamoto's wallets, you have people who lost in the landfill, you have people who bought a long time ago and were mining and they have thousands, and they just lose it because they just didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And now it's that big deal. So I think and there's varying numbers out there, you could be looking at anywhere between, 3.5 and 6 million Bitcoin that are just permanently lost. Some people even say it's all the way up to 8 million. And if that's the case, and these guys are owning 1 million, that's a lot of the Bitcoin that's out there. So hopefully they do the right thing and hold on to it. I don't think they all will. I think some will get spooked because they're not used to the volatility. They just look at Michael Saylor and go, that looks pretty cool, let's do that. But over time, and we know this to be true, we've got friends that buy like crazy, and then when it starts to dip 5%, 10%, they're not used to that because maybe they've never invested themselves, or maybe they're used to traditional finance. And as it goes down 10, 20%, like, you know what, this is way too crazy for me, I'm out. Hopefully these companies will have cooler heads and they'll prevail. But the thing is, we have all these treasuries, these Bitcoin treasury companies, and on top of that, we have these beautiful ETFs coming in that have been just crushing it. Here's the Bitcoin ETF flow, and you can see that BlackRock leading the charge. And over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, hopefully a week and a half or so, they haven't sold any. And then more recently, on 20th of August, they sold a little bit. But we can see that the total amount in these ETFs has gone up and to the right. And we've seemed to have hit a plateau with Bitcoin. It's the same thing for Ethereum as well. And we're going to see here that, Ethereum doing reasonably well, not too much sell-off, except for yesterday, when every single company that has an ETF, Fidelity, Bitwise, 2Shares, VanEck, Invesco, Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, they all sold, except for BlackRock. And if you don't think that, this is just retail, and that's who owns the ETFs, that's incorrect. There's retail, there's advisors, and there's also institutions that own the ETFs. And if you don't think that BlackRock and Fidelity and VanEck don't have investments in their own ETF, you're wrong. There's a video I did. Just take a search for digital asset news ETFs. And because of public filings, we know that they actually do. So when people are selling off, could be retail, could be advisories, could be institutions. We're going to find out when everybody registered with or files with the SEC. But I can just tell you that usually what it is you got some retail looking over there at institutions going, what are those guys doing? They're selling? I must not know something. They're the smart money. I got to sell. And then they sell off. The same thing with futures contracts. They're like, what's going on with that paper Bitcoin? Oh, they're selling? I should probably sell. And just a big cascading effect and moving forward. And that really what it comes down to is this. is I know that we've got a lot of great news, and people will only talk about that great news. They'll tell you, hey, there's a supply shock coming in. Did you hear about this? Hey, diamond hands, whatever. And they'll talk about these massive companies that are gobbling things up. They'll talk about the ETFs, but they'll remind you that there is the sell pressure still. And that's why I still think we're going sideways, because people don't think, or they don't have that perseverance to follow through, especially going into September 17th, when we will find out if we get 0 rate cuts, 25 or 50 basis points. And this is what I put together. It's called the selling multiplier effect. So the reason why these things go off, we have all this great news, everybody reports on it, but just remember, there's a ton of margin trading. There's the herd mentality, which we just talked about. Slippage arbitrage, stop loss orders. There's bot trading left and right, especially in crypto. There's thin order books. And there's these things called leverage and liquidations. This wasn't really of a big day. I mean, you can take a look at the price action going in. But did you know that today we had $250 million on shorts and longs that were liquidated in 24 hours? Look at that, 330 million wrecked. And it just kind of keeps us in this stagnation. And I have no problems with that. I mean, if people who are trading like this give me more of an opportunity to acquire Bitcoin and some dirty alts, then I will take that opportunity. So I say thank you. I will say this, though, before we move on. One of the biggest losers out there is this World Liberty Fi. Did you see that they froze not just Justin Sun and his accounts, but like 276 other accounts? And they're supposed to be a decentralized platform or a decentralized project. What a joke. I heard Eric Trump, maybe it was Don Jr., come out and say that the reason why they got into crypto is because the banks debanked them and they were essentially frozen out of their accounts. And what do? Same thing with everybody else. So I got to tell you, Donald Trump and the current administration, I'm happy what they're doing as far as pushing the agenda forward, getting clarity, Genius Act, and pushing the narrative. I am not a big fan of the family getting into it and just destroying it with stupid meme coins called Trump, Melania, and whatever the heck this is. You're bound to say I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments section. That's just how I sees it. Anyhow, let's switch gears, shall we? And then we'll get in the Q&A. Excuse me. Macro. This is really what it comes down to. I mean, we talk about liquidations and order books and slippage and all that great stuff, but really what it comes down to is how's the economy doing? And I think everybody knows this by now. I usually do my streams a bit later in the day to see if there's any new news, but unemployment rate's up to 4.3%. I think we're at, were we below 4, maybe 4.1? So unemployment's creeping up. The May and June jobs reports were revised lower, remember that, by 258,000 jobs. And then the Bureau of Labor Statistics revised the June jobs report again, and they lost 27,000 jobs. And as a reminder, inflation continues to go up. I know people will say, but it's hitting expectations. Yeah, the expectation was it keeps going up. So because of the Fed has a dual mandate, they have to make sure the economy doesn't cool down too much, and they have to make sure that the inflation doesn't rise exponentially. And what the data that they're looking at, which I think is incorrect potentially, is telling them, look, inflation keeps going up, but the economy is sucking. So what are they going to do? Well, if you take a look at a little bit deeper dive, the economy is really not doing fantastic. Employment, last session was 106,000. The expectation was 75,000. We couldn't even hit that. We got 54,000. Jobless claims. Last time was 229,000. The expectation was 230, and we're going up 237,000. Trade deficit, that makes sense because everybody's trying to get ahead, or was trying to get ahead of the tariffs, which went in effect, I think, August 1st, correct me in the comments. And then unemployment report, wow, this is bad. 79,000, expectation was 75, we only got 22,000. So we are seeing this as the economy starts to cool off majorly. And Jerome Powell is probably going to cut. However, I will say on this part of the inflation part, there's this website I like to look at. I've talked about this before in the past. I haven't really said too much about it recently. Truflation. And it's a free site. You can go check it out yourself. But what I'd like to see is, because people say, but Rob, I go down to the grocery store and prices are going up. What the heck are you talking about? I get that. If we take a look at the Truflation US Inflation Index, again, they're getting real-time data or up-to-the-minute data as best they can with these 30 or 50 different indicators that they have as far as an API integration. Fantastic, right? So that 1.93, if you take a look at the composition of where these numbers are coming from, and you can break it down by food and beverage, housing, transport. Look at food and beverage. Now, I'm not going to go over this in detail, but you can see that it's trending down a little bit. Housing is going down a lot. And I see that too, because right now I'm trying to sell a house and I can't sell that house because it looks like we got a little bit more of some part of a shortage on our hand. Transportation, roughly flat. Utilities going up a little bit. Healthcare, yeah, it sucks. Healthcare sucks because it's so damn expensive. Household and daily items, a little bit up. Alcohol and tobacco, well, thank God that didn't go up too much. Clothing is down. Communications is down. Education is down. Recreation culture is up a little bit. There's a host of others. So yes, there are some parts that are going up. There are some parts that are staying the same. There's some parts that are going down. And what Truflation is saying is like this. Look, we're actually down below 2%. And if that's more accurate, great. The Fed doesn't look at this, so who cares, Rob? It's because when you look at Truflation, you kind of see where things are really headed as opposed to where I think the Fed is looking at. Anyhow, let me know what you think about that in the comments section. But there was a great piece over on CNBC. It was ETHEREUM. Mohammed ETHEREUM, Alliance Chief Economic Advisor. And he gives a reason why Jerome Powell has to cut now. I didn't really think about this, but it made a lot of sense. So just take a listen to this. I'd like to get some different points of opinion than my own. And tell me what you think. Let me make sure you can hear this correctly. And here we go. This is about a minute or so.
X audience, Twitter, what it thinks. I asked, by not cutting rates this year, the Fed is A, doing it right, or B, getting it wrong, Mohammed. 67% said the Fed is getting it wrong by not cutting rates sooner or more aggressively. Would you agree with that take?
I agree with the 2/3 who said that they have been getting it wrong. You know, there was a bunch of us outside and inside the Fed that were arguing for a July cut. And our concern, which is playing out in the data, is that Chair Powell had taken too narrow a view of the jobs market. And by that, he was ignoring the weakness that was starting to come to the surface. And the problem, as you know, Brian, is if you don't address weakness in the labor market, it becomes non-linear. It accelerates and it becomes much more damaging. So yes, I think they have gotten it wrong. I think once again, they're late. They will cut in September. And I suspect there will also be a discussion, should they cut by 25 or 50? And where you end up on this depends on whether you think the labor market has a demand or supply problem and what you think the inflation dynamics really are.
Wow. Let me tell you right now, if Mohammed's right and we get a 50 basis point cut in September, this market's going to rip like crazy. If it gets 25, some people say it's actually already priced in and doesn't make a big difference. I still say it'll move a little bit. And if we get nothing, if Jerome Powell's like, you know what, here's my departing gift for Trump and his administration, no cut, which would actually be kind of funny. It'd be bad for our bags, but it would actually be kind of funny that he did that. Well, he'd be screwing the whole nation to do that. But if that does happen, just expect the market to not price that part in, and it'd be pretty awful. So 50 basis points on the horizon. We'll see. There's a great website you can take a look at, CME Group, which everybody talks about. It's not just about this one, which the meeting for Federal Reserve 7th of September, the current target rate is 425 to 450. And they're saying now that, look, it's like a 90% chance that they're going to cut at least 25 basis points. And there's a 10% chance of 50. Well, hopefully they listen to Mohammed and they cut it by 50 basis points, but what do I know? I'm not an economist. However, if we take a look forward, how about October? Well, October, they're saying like, look, we're going to cut from 45 to 450 down to 400 to 425, and then we're going to get another 25 basis points in October, and we got a 72% shot of that. And then if we look at 10th of December, they're saying, yeah, it's going to go down to 375 to 400, and it's also going to go to 350 to 375. And there's a 68% chance of that. Now, look for these to move around. But if we get one rate cut or two rate cuts, and then we get another one on October, another one in December, things will be pretty good. I don't know how that screws up everything in the future as we start cutting rates. If we can sustain that, that's for the markets to decide. Anyhow, let me know what you think about that. And then lastly, just a little indicator, because the CME group is great and Fed's got their data and Trueflake's got their data, but the real data comes from Polymarket. Predictive markets nailed it on the last presidential election. Things were up in the air. Nobody really knew. Some people say, everybody knew Trump was going to win. No, you didn't. I mean, you may have, but there are a lot of pundits out there were like, this is going to be Kamala Harris's time. And it didn't. And they called it and they nailed it. And now I'm taking a look at the Fed rate cut in 2095, 99% chance. So I wouldn't bet against Polymarket. I think they got a pretty good way to do things. Also, if you'd like to use this and you're a gambler like my friend Bobby, they just open it up for NFL. So you can start gambling. I'm sorry, predictive marketing in the NFL opener. And of course, it's going to be against, I think it's the Eagles and the Cowboys. So if you want to do something like that, there's a link in the description and you can go for it. I use Polygon. It's a pretty good site. I will say though, they just got clearance by the CFTC to be used in all 50 states, but I keep getting this. And I'm sorry, my friend Bobby keeps getting this, and he sent this to me. And I'm like, I don't know. You appear to be located in the US, France, and other jurisdiction. Trading is not available to US persons in the US, France. Oh, now we're just as bad as France? Jesus. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Let me know if you have that same issue. But this also, let me down one more thing before we get into it. I thought about this. I'm like, Polymarket must be enormous because, I mean, they're doing all these predictive markets. Now they're getting into the gambling aspect, which is a multi-billion dollar market itself. And this one, it's hitting 1.16 billion. I want to take a look at this and see where the gamblers are. If you go to DeFi Llama, you can pull up the information from Polymarket. That's why I like DeFi stuff, and you can find everything. The TVL, you can see where it's locked, Polygon, which makes you wonder why the heck Polygon is doing so awful as far as price action. But as far as like the volume, yeah, look at that. DEX volume, last 30 days was 1.02. This article talks about how it's declining, but I don't see that happening. I mean, I guess 1.02 billion or 1.16 billion, boo-hoo. It's still doing pretty good. And then I took a look and I thought to myself, but is this where all the gamblers go? I mean, I'm sorry, predictive market participants go? No, it's not. If you go to DeFi Llama and take a look at, and you look at DEX volume by protocol, you know where all the predictive market participants go as far as volume? They go to places like Uniswap and PancakeSwap and Meteora. You think 1.02 billion in 30 days is a lot of volume? Look at Uniswap. It has $141 billion in 30 days. And then PancakeSwap, then Meteora, then Fluid, Orca. Where the heck is Polymarket? Oh, here it is. Wait for it. Sushi, QuickSwap, Thala, something, and there's Polymarket at 41. So if you want to be a gambler, it's not here. Just go up to one of these. And finally, tomorrow, I'll be releasing the video I did with the Indigo guys. I actually did a swaps and Bitcoin DeFi and loans, if you've into that type of thing. And we just took a look at their platform. This is all on Cardano. If you're looking for utility, you found it. This is it. But that's it for today. So look, like today's video, thumbs up, consider subscribing. Everything we talk about is time sensitive. Now we'll do a little Q&A, answer all your questions, and then we'll enjoy the weekend. All right, what do we got? Joseph Kelly says, I ain't French. Timor Ali, rates not being cut would be the madhouse effect. I have to agree. I thought he might do that. He might come in and say, well, you know, because of inflation reports and what we're seeing is a PCE and core PCE, and you know, the expectation was for it to rise and it did rise, and we're worried more about inflation, we're not going to cut. I saw him doing that, but after doing a little more research, maybe not. Let's see. Plato, thank you for the sticker. Save that 99 cents. But I appreciate it. Using Mets every year, August and September is slow and crazy. Folks don't lose money. Yeah, it's a funny thing. you know, sell in May and go away. It might have actually worked out reasonably well. But if you're going to go away, you missed all this opportunity to buy all these big plunging lines. August we did hit an all-time high for Bitcoin. That's true, but we also were a negative overall for the month. Afternoon, Darren. Thanks for stopping by. Okay. AWD says, did you load up on your favorite project, World Liberty Fi? What a disappointment that is. I mean, it's just an opportunity lost. You know, you have an administration that is so pro Bitcoin and crypto and digital assets, and they could have done something great with this, and they're just messing up. And it's like, do you guys know what you're doing? Do you guys know what the ethos is? Do you guys realize that you're not supposed to freeze accounts like that? What are you, a CBDC? But yeah, this was actually from Cointelegraph. On-chain data shows World Liberty Financial blacklisted 272 addresses in 7 days per Galaxy Researcher. And then, oh, this is actually fun. Then Ben is getting into a fight with Litecoin. This is pretty fun. Or I shouldn't say fight. It's a playful banter back and forth. As Litecoin says, your head reminds me of the Great Recession. And Ben says, your market cap reminds me of the Great Recession. And I said, Litecoin, you're not going to win this. Throw in the towel. And these are the things that I do as a grown adult, is doom scroll X. All right. What are we talking about? Let's see. MicroStrategy, no. Oh, Dominic. Yeah, I don't know what happened here. I don't know if you guys heard this one. Can we discuss MicroStrategy not being included on the S&P 500? This is a very interesting point. I thought that they hit all the criteria and the requirements, and they were in the running. It was a shoo-in for S&P 500. Does anybody know exactly why that is? That would be an interesting conversation. I just know that they didn't, and I didn't get a chance to look it up. I got a good laugh. It's nice. How powerful would a 50 basis point rate cut be? Pretty powerful. I think since the market, if the market priced in 25, they sure as heck didn't price in 50. I can tell you that. So if we get 50 basis points off the running, and wouldn't that be interesting how that would work as we start to talk about the 4-year cycles? I know people will say, well, you know, we're just going to keep going up because, you know, we have all the institutions here. We have the ETFs here. I get it. I see your argument. I understand. I don't think it's going to happen. I think human nature will always win out. And I think some of these digital asset treasury companies got over their skis and they don't know the volatility that really is that massive. And that's not just, I'm not talking about just Bitcoin. Bitcoin might do pretty well, but the altcoins, once they start slipping, they're gone. And I can think of a handful that actually do something, and all the other ones, unfortunately, the ones that I own, don't do squat. So it's just the truth. Robin is listening to me. There you go. Jump 7% an hour. Very nice. What did? Is it because of the, it's probably because of this live stream. Congratulations, everybody. We brought everything back. Just kidding. My recession over yours. That's right. Oh, yeah. Doran says, can you get the owner of $1 Billion Cat back in the show? He mined Bitcoin to swap for $1 Billion Cat. So he said. And as I remember, he swapped it all that Bitcoin for BDC. If you don't know what we're talking about, this is like meme coin city. Let's see. Billion for a Billy. I guess it's just called BDC now. This was like the narrative. Oof. Not good. Wow, look at that. 24 hours, 5%, 7 days, 13%, 14 days, 40%, 1 year, 37%. Yeah, man. You play with the bull, you get the horns. So I actually had some Billy. I thought, throw some in there. It's worth 40% less now. But what can you do? Yeah, I'll ask if he wants to come on. I don't think he will. We'll see. What's your thoughts on Tether getting their own change, and what effects will this have on Tron? Well, if they're doing their own chain, I guess it really comes down to, is this a chain that's going to be decentralized or is it going to be centralized like what Circle is doing with their own chain for USDC? Then you have to ask yourself, what is this chain supposed to be for? Is it for the retail? Is it for the institutional customers? Is it for the banks? What's going on here? Why are they doing that? A lot of questions. I'll have to take a look at it. And I actually think it's like for Circle, when we talked about this in NFA Live, the question was, do you think Circle should be doing this as far as their own centralized chain? I said, sure. And they put it in a blog post, eloquently stated, like, look, we can't deal with the volatility of the prices for these different chains that we're doing. Our customers, big customers, don't want to pay for that. They want to have a little bit more things obscure, obviously, and they don't want to deal with, again, with the volatility. So look, if you want to have like big guys like that, do it. If you want to have retail and some other different sectors do the other way with the decentralization and have it open in a free economy, great. Let's do that. Again, different strokes for different people. Remember, our market cap is still sub $4 trillion. Do you know that remittances, payments, global money movement is a $1.8 quadrillion market? I still think we got a long way to go. And if they want to do that, go right ahead. Let's see. Ooh. Did you guys watch a video regarding crypto exchanges looking to IPO in 2026? Guy didn't address the possible litigation exposure. Yeah, there's some centralized exchanges that are not going to be IPO'd because they did some shady stuff. And look, if you do wrong, you got to pay the price. There's a piper to be paid. However, I think Gemini is coming forward. They want to do the IPO. My favorite exchange, Kraken, is coming forward. I really wish I could get into that IPO. It's so nice. And those two I can see going forward. And since they're in the States, they're a little bit more limited in what they do. And I believe Gemini, if I'm not mistaken, aren't they based in New York, which is like the worst area that you can be in for crypto? So if they want to do it, they'll probably IPO. And then also I think it's, Bullish already did Peter Thiel's centralized exchange, and they did reasonably well. So we'll see. But the other ones, MEXC and whoever else, good luck. You better settle. There, and I have some of that. Haven't bought enough. Yep. Oh, the 3 pots of red. Those right in the green screen? Those are fake roses. Yeah. Blank. Never heard of that. Taryn says, I bought it $13 and $8. Scam. Yeah, it's just another meme coin trying to make its way in this hardened jungle of real utility of digital assets. Just kidding, there's not much. This is, hey, do you believe we can go 3x on alts in Q4? Sure. Depends on the alt, though. We talk a lot on this channel about utility and things that are actually, have a function. But it seems like we'll take Pepe, for example. Pepe has no function. Pepe is a meme coin. And I think it went up I want to say 30 or 40% over the last 2 weeks. And why? Just no rhyme or reason. That's just how it is. And that's the problem, because people get into that game, but they don't realize that underneath the surface are just either VCs or people with a lot of money just playing a bunch of games, pushing the price up, having people realize, oh, this price is going up, and they get into it and they take that liquidity out and they bomb them. To me, I take a look at it and say, okay, what do these things actually have utility? Well, Bitcoin, obviously, right? That's number one. That's why my portfolio is so big in Bitcoin. Ethereum seems to be like the next big winner. We've talked about this why. I know people say it's very slow. True. It's expensive. Also true. But, Microsoft wasn't the greatest product also. But in the 90s, everybody bought off Microsoft. And, of course, if you put that on for PCs and in the offices, you didn't get fired. So I think that's the same thing with Ethereum. But then also you take a look at the big 4 chains that are moving all the stable coins around, which is why this interesting question for Tether. So again, you got Ethereum, you got Tron, those 2 of the biggest. You got Solana and Binance Smart Chain. And then Arbitrum and some layer 2s. Maybe Polygon, who knows? But yeah, you can 3x, sure. But the question is which one? Yeah, every round, nobody's an IPO, swipe left. Bodan's right. Stellar has utility and potential for sure. Absolutely. Question is, how much will it be adopted and how many banks are using it? Not just saying we're trialing it, but using. I have a little Stellar. Not that much, though. Fake screens, fake roses, absolutely. You are correct. Tomato coin, also worthless. Just says, I wonder how these peace talks with Russia, Ukraine are going. Boy, if we get a peace treaty before that rate cut, imagine how well the markets would do. And I'll leave it with this. Darren says it. I'm still ready to get tired of too much winning. Classic. All right, everybody. That's it for today. So look, like today's video, do me a favor. Thumbs up on your way out. Subscribe if you want to. Not like YouTube's going to notify you anyhow. But good luck. That's it for today. Thanks much, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow when we talk about Indigo. Adios.